Hello, everybody, and welcome to the SnoopCast. I'm Ian.
What's good? Bruce, just chilling.
Yeah, I'm some dude.
Who are you?
Yeah, nobody important. I'm just some dude. What do? I draw cartoons and stuff. I have a comic that I got. It's been on hiatus for a while, but I don't know, I might do it later this year.
Gummy Worm.
No, yeah, that too. But I'm planning on doing more Inkwell stuff later on too.
Inkwell as well. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, he's a stupid monkey with the gloves on his feet. I thought I was a genius for coming up with that, but then I realized that Ren and Stimpy did over 20 years before I did.
Nah, so we haven't recorded in like 5 months.
I'd say 5.
Around 5 months, because we've been busy in our lives,
Been busy with school, college, trips, family matters, whatever else. Not the show, but family matters for real.
So we're just doing a show about Toy Story 4 because we all saw that recently. It was a pretty good movie.
Very good movie indeed.
Yeah, what'd you guys think of it?
I loved it.
I loved it a lot, actually.
I think it was a better conclusion than 3.
Oh, you think so?
Yes, I do believe so. It was a better ending than 3 was only 9 years ago.
But it was a nice movie. It was probably one of the funnier of those movies.
I agree too. Had a lot of charming moments with all the side characters, which I thought were all very likable and memorable compared to the ones that were introduced in 3 also. This one this movie in general feels like it's more bittersweet than it is gloomy than how 3 was, and I like it more because it's more cheerful, I guess, even though it's it kind of feels like a return to form for Toy Story 1 with the tone and everything, and I really enjoy that, especially with the main adventure and everything. It's cool. It's a really cool movie.
I think what I appreciate most about Toy Story 4 overall is that it kind of drops a lot of conventions that 2 and 3 kind of introduced. So they all kind of seem to build on top of each other, but 4 kind of it goes for a little bit. The stakes are a little bit lower, and it just feels like an actual new story and not kind of a different take on 2 like 3 was. I don't agree with YMS that 3 was just a rehash of 2 because it's obviously bullshit, but this one seems a lot more unique out of all the Toy Story sequels so far.
Yeah, I do think that it is unique, but what I like 3 most is that it kind of focused on kind of all of the characters. There was screen time for a lot of the new characters, but it also took time to see all the old characters like Potato Head and Slinky. But it did feel a lot more fulfilling than 4, honestly, because in 4 there was just a lot of stuff about Gabby and Forky.
I think that's my one complaint with 4. That I feel the other all of Andy's other toys feel kind of underutilized, which is kind of a shame. I kind of like Buzz better in this movie than in the other sequels, honestly. I feel like Buzz in the one thing I kind of noticed with 2 and 3 is that they kind of make Buzz after he kind of realizes that he's not a toy, he's kind of a Boy Scout, which is why in 2 and 3 they kind of find they find 2 ways to bring back the original version of Buzz with the new version of Buzz in Toy Story 2, and then in Toy Story 3 he gets rebooted into basically becoming his old self in the first movie, except he speaks Spanish.
Yeah.
In this movie, I kind of like what they did with. They kind of I think this is really the first Toy Story movie to kind of advance his character since 1.
Yeah. Well, I did like Buzz's side plot with the little plushes, which
yeah,
well, they were funny. Key and Peele, anything that they're in there, they're pretty funny. And
it's funny because I thought they were pretty obnoxious in the teaser trailer, but in the movie they were actually really funny.
Now that you mentioned the teaser trailer, that's another thing that I had to bring up. That I'm usually not a movie guy. I'm I'm a documentary guy or a YouTube guy. So I never look at stuff regarding the the trailers or anything like that, because I'm kind of I don't know, I want to come in no kind of bias,
Yeah, I didn't really go. I went in aside from seeing the 2 trailers, I went in pretty much blind. I didn't see any clips or anything.
I had seen the teaser trailers for 4 when they had been coming out. I guess was it last year or just earlier this year? Sometime earlier on.
I think the teaser was late last year, and then the first trailer was at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was what I had ended up seeing those teasers and those trailers and stuff, and honestly, like the way that like Disney marketing is that like nowadays I never really trust the trailers because I didn't really like them. Actually, I wasn't really
Yeah.
a fan of like the way that the teasers looked. I didn't really like the way that the trailers looked. It's just gonna be like, oh well, this movie doesn't seem like it's gonna be really that good or in tone, and I'm really thankful to be have proven wrong. Actually, like I've been really
Yeah.
thankful that this
In
turned it
fact,
out
in
the
like
opposite.
earlier episodes when we were talking about Toy Story 4 when it was still in development, I was definitely kind of hostile to that kind of.
I think a lot of people really were.
I
Yeah,
was kind of worried, honestly, because what do you do with a sequel like that when the third one ended honestly perfectly for me? I was like, how do you do that, really?
It is kind of weird because, like, I mean, everyone just kind of thought 3 was just like the perfect finale and like gave such good closure to these characters. But like, once 4 like kind of was announced, everyone was just kind of like denouncing it. I remember like Shuon had was like raising hell on Twitter, like saying like, "Oh, it's gonna be about like technology and iPhones and shit." And it's like,
oh man,
Technologies and iPhones. Were they even iPhones in that movie?
I don't think there were iPhones in any of them actually.
I didn't see any of them, but I mean, I think for real,
the third one, Andy's phone was like a flip phone.
Yeah, it was like kind of like a Nokia.
I guess Toy Story 4 takes place in 2010 or 11.
It seems to take place like a year after the first movie, after 3.
Okay, then 2011.
Wait, so
then.
if 2 came out in what 98 was it
99.
99.
So 99 and Andy's 17 in 2010, and that's like an 11-year time gap.
Yeah, he was like 6 in 1. I think he's like 10 in 2, and then he's like, around like late teens in 3.
Oh, that's
yeah,
right.
like 18. Yeah.
So he's around 6 in 1, 10 in 2, and 17 in 3.
Yeah, pretty much.
We got to find out this.
It's funny because like how Finding Dory takes place a year after like the original film, so like technically it, like takes place in 2004.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's kind of weird to think about.
What I wanted to bring up though is that like the way that everybody was just like kind of denouncing this movie, and I mean like I was guilty of it. I think a lot of people were guilty of it over art, like movie Twitter, artist Twitter, whatever. Like whoever's into Toy Story, really. Like just hear me out. Like I think like this movie is basically just now the perfect representation of like how the veterans at Pixar really just know what they're doing. Like still at least because there's clearly like now at Pixar with like younger blood now it's just like there's the A team, the B team, and the C team, and like let's say that the A team is the veterans. I feel like combined efforts and stuff together, like these people still know what they're doing and they're great storytellers, like by far.
But what I was worried about when 4 was announced was that kind of sequelitis that movies like Cars or Monsters Inc. went through. Like,
right, it was just degrading quality, like movie after movie.
Yeah, because I think like the thing about like ever since Toy Story 2, like I consider that to be like the Empire Strikes Back of like animated films, because it's just like one of those sequels that's just like vastly superior to the original in like every way. And I think with that movie, it didn't just set like a precedent for like animated sequels, but it set like a huge precedent for like Pixar as a whole.
Well, this movie is like I studied it as like the way that like 3 was like a conclusion to the toy group as a whole, like with Andy's toys and like the majority of them that were left over in 3. 4 I recognize as like a much more intimate story between Woody and Bo Peep, because no spoiler, she comes back. That's been like known for months now. It's just that's not even a spoiler.
It's all in the promotional stuff. So
I think like
exactly.
I think that's like actually the reason why like the side toys don't get as much to do here is because this is like pretty much solely like a Woody kind of story. It's very Woody centric.
Yeah, it's like he's the character with the most loose ends. He's the main one to focus on like anyway throughout like the previous 2 movies. The previous movies kind of like had like it was like the constant connection between Woody and Andy, I think, that like made those movies matter. But Woody in 4, like even after 3, had like those loose ties, you know, like the loose ends that had to be tied up towards like 4, you know, and I
Woody
think
kind of. Oh, sorry.
no, it's fine. I'm just saying though that like I think like Woody like still had more to tell, and if like that's what they were really going for, I believe that they succeeded.
Yeah,
Um,
he really
like
kind of develops like gradually with each movie, which I really
he
appreciate.
did. Oh
Even when you
yeah,
think like he's like fully developed, like after 3, like there's still like a lot of stuff he's kind of hiding.
yeah, yeah. I totally agree. I mean, like there's with um there's not really like a single movie where like Woody is the same character, and that's like impressive to me.
Yeah, like
Because
compare
like
Woody from like compare him to like Toy Story 1 and like 4. It's like a completely different. Like it's like a massive shift, like from like in character, really.
it's a massive shift, but like he still kind of has like the domineering presence that like that's just been there since the beginning, because like he was never meant as a, you know, like in at least in the official stories and everything, he was never meant as a bad toy or and very antagonistic. He was just he was naturally protective and defensive, like over like what he knew, and he didn't like any surprises. And that's still kind of true in 4, but like you know, he's kind of like depressed, you know, he's unhappy, and like he just wants to find kind of like a way out, like after, you know, this whole story is about like the idea of fulfillment and like what that really means.
Fulfillment and belonging, and
kind of how it affects other people, you know.
You know, what is his purpose, like after all's been said and done from 1 through 3, like what happened, like, you know, the movie tackles it, like what do you do? So it's like that's a really smart move.
I did appreciate what they were focusing on, like Woody was. But first, let's get into like an actual synopsis. So this movie takes place after Toy Story 3, obviously, but it's when Bonnie is now with the toys instead of Andy because they closed that arc off. And so they decided. So when Bonnie she goes to kindergarten for the first day, she makes a friend named Forky, and Woody's job in this movie is basically to protect Forky because you know he knows that Bonnie loves her, so he wants to like kind of keep him from doing any kind of things to get out of that kind of position, so he can stay. But so Forky can stay in the position. I did really like that aspect of like Woody being a father figure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is actually really cool. I also like how like in a way Forky kind of like brings back the same conflict from the original movie, but like yeah, they shoot it down like almost immediately because it doesn't.
Well, it's reversed. It's reversed because in the original movie, when he was trying to get rid of Buzz because like he was stealing all the attention from him, now it's
Now
like
it's the
Woody,
opposite. He's trying to give him more attention from Bonnie.
it's a great like kind of like full circle reversal, you know.
There's a lot of really cool like kind of callbacks or like kind of like stuff they bring back from the first movie, which I really like.
It's never to the point where it's distracting though, which I can also really appreciate.
Like it feels like a totally new movie, but like you can see kind of the DNA from the originals there too.
Yeah. So, and then with these further synopsis of the movie, Forky gets lost, and Woody basically has to bring him back to Bonnie before anything haywire basically happens, and plenty of that happens, but I won't say like what it is. What? Yes, of course. Spoiler section for that. But what does happen though? In the meantime, like with the further developing, you know, story of the characters between like Woody and Bo Peep, and his relationship with Forky develops like over the course of the movie. I really enjoy the setting of the movie, which is an antique shop, which is just absolutely gorgeous. I much prefer it over how grimy and disgusting the daycare center was in 3, personally.
Yeah. Also, the carnival was really cool looking too.
I'm just thinking about this one moment when the ventriloquist dolls, I forgot their names, but Benson, when Woody and Forky are sneaking in because Woody thought he saw Bo Peep, uh like they were sneaking in, and they the ventriloquist found them, and just the scenery in that one specific scene when they spot him, it's just glorious. Just I don't know what it just feels like they took like real life photos and they actually just plastered the Toy Story characters on it. That's how kind of real it looks.
Yeah, the animation in this movie is incredible.
That's another thing.
Yeah, a lot of what I see is how far the animations got. You compare the Sid's dog from the first movie, and it looks like it looks like shit. And then you see there's a cat who meows like in the antique shop, and it looks like real. It genuinely looks real.
Yeah, like
The
when you see it in
movement
like
and
the
everything, man.
in like the light, you see like the little particle effects coming from the fur. It's like so.
Yeah, you can see all the circle lights coming from Bo Peep's reflection. It's
Yeah.
surreal.
Oh
The
yeah.
chandelier, man. The scene with the chandeliers is
Oh,
so
dude,
cool.
it was gorgeous looking. Also, I like how like they kind of like they emphasize like a lot of the textures of the characters now. Like
Oh,
how
yeah.
Oh yeah.
now you can tell like Bo Peep is made of porcelain now. She doesn't look like a shiny kind of texture.
Right, yeah. That's another thing though that I was like worried about actually with this movie was that like I was this was just a personal gripe with me was that I didn't know from the teaser trailers like if the realistic approach to like how the movie was going to look was going to like bother me at all because it's just like, you have like the huge jumps in quality of like the animation between 1 to 2 to 3 and now this that you thought like, well, it wasn't like Toy Story wasn't exactly like they didn't have realistic models for like the outside world like beyond the toys to begin with. So like, how was that going to work? And then the way that they implemented them was just it felt natural. It wasn't distracting. It wasn't like the Good Dinosaur where like I feel like everything else looked like way too realistic, and then like the inside the characters that you're supposed to be focused on detract from like everything the way everything else looks because it's like cartoony and contrasts way too much.
Yeah, yeah. The problem with the good, what makes a good dinosaur a bad example, what makes Toy Story 4 a good example is that they enhance the characters as well as the backgrounds. But with something like the Good Dinosaur, they kind of kept the characters kind of this simple kind of cartoony thing, but like in this background, it's just photorealistic, like somewhat backgrounds. It's extremely jarring.
I think another thing is that like the real world in Toy Story has always been portrayed as like very illustrative, like almost like a children's book kind of. Like you look at the clouds and like the trees and it looks very colorful and very very like very much like it's like a painting or something. And they kind of kept that throughout all three movies.
True, yeah.
Like when you look at the sky, it's like the same pattern as Andy's bedroom. But one of my favorite callbacks was actually at the beginning of the movie where like they show the title. It's the exact same as the first movie. Like Woody just says, "You're my favorite deputy," and then like moves the arm. But it's like Bonnie instead of Andy. That was really clever.
It was really nice. It was a really sweet kind of like affectionate callback.
Also, I forgot RC was in this movie. That was fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was only like a little bit of a cameo at the beginning. He was basically was he ever in the second movie? Because I don't think he was. He was only in.
He
wasn't.
he made like a cameo. He was in the background in like the second movie, but not really a major character.
Just for clarification for like the audience and everything, I unfortunately wasn't able to like have time to watch 1, 2, and 3, rewatch them at least because just due to timing like with everything that's been going on right now with me. But that's good. I will say though, this relates. This was several years ago at this point now, though. Just like a cool story I wanted to share was that that I was reminded when Toy Story 3 was going to be like the final brand new movie was when I got to see 1 and 2 on the big screen. Actually, when they temporarily re-released them, that was they did it of course with the stupid 3D gimmick, but I mean like it's Toy Story on the big screen. Of course I'm gonna see that as like I was like 12 at the time. I mean like yeah, dude. This was back in 2010 when Toy Story 3 was gonna be released soon, and Pixar decided to release 1 and 2 back on the big screen. And I wish that like there was a thing around my area that allowed 1, 2, and 3 back on the big screen in like a local theater of mine or something like that again, because that was an awesome event for 1 and 2 to be re-released back in theaters. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
Because when I was planning my tickets to watch this movie, I saw that they were like Regal Cinemas was doing a marathon for all the movies, but it wasn't like nowhere near my location, so it was like, and like,
dang.
Oh
but it
man.
was like 6 hours. Like,
Oh my gosh.
am I really gonna like, I do want to rewatch these movies, but it would be like an interesting experience to watch it like in the theaters with everybody else.
I remember like the first movie I ever actually saw in 3D. This kind of somewhat ties into like the re-release thing, but I remember the first movie I ever saw in 3D was actually The Lion King. When they re-released that in 3D for like no reason.
This is different, but the first movie I ever remember watching in theaters was Chicken Little. So
Oh my gosh.
Mine was the
I remember
movie.
is I was living in Maryland at the time, and at my theater there was like a giant not inflatable, a giant walk around character of Chicken Little, and I was freaked out.
That sounds hilarious.
Like a giant chicken little that just towers over you.
Yeah,
Just for your ticket.
I was like,
This
3
just
feet
sounds
tall, so it's like-
horrifying.
yeah, it was horrifying.
Maybe we should discuss some more of the side characters a little more before we get into spoilers.
Let's discuss the side characters. Yeah, I really.
So, favorite side character?
Oh, my favorite character, new character they introduced was obviously Forky, because for one I did see because I didn't completely block myself from looking at these like promotional material, but I didn't watch any of the trailers, right? But I looked at Forky and I was like, okay, this is gonna be like some dumb kind of basic character with no kind of irredeemable traits, and he's just gonna get into trouble. I mean, he did get into trouble in the movie, but when I watched it, he was a very endearing character. He was, he was caring, and he did like understand.
I was in the same boat as you. I was gonna think like, this one character is just going to ruin the entire thing, and like I'm so glad he didn't.
Yeah, I was like really dreading his appearance in this because I thought he was going to be that whole like basically suicidal like existential like freak for the entire movie. But by the second act, he actually becomes like this really endearing and almost like kind of adorable kind of side character.
I was mainly nervous just because of the fact that like, well, actually like there was a few things that like seemed like, I guess, off to me. Was that like when I saw the initial teaser trailer when they were just like all holding hands, they were going in a circle in slow motion, whatever. Was that like Forky's design, like, in my head, didn't match up with the way that like the other characters were designed. Like all these characters were probably designed like back in like the early 90s or like mid 90s for like computer technology and stuff. And seeing them updated like with all the textures and stuff like is cool and like shows how well they've held up for so long. As character designs, they're solid, but and then like I saw Forky and just like, what the heck is this?
Another thing that makes it more jarring is that like characters like Slinky and like Mr. Potato Head were already like pre-existing real toys before then.
Yeah. So then like when I see like Forky, like I was getting like two vibes. I was thinking like, oh, this design's not going to fit in with like the rest of the characters in the entire movie, and that he's going to be loud and annoying the entire time, and he was really neither. I thought he actually fit in pretty well towards, like just the way that I like watched the movie all the way through towards the end, like, like I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just thinking like this was, really well thought out and just put together, like with his design and like his character development, like all the way through. Very solid.
Also, going to like just other characters, I really like what they did with Bo Peep. Like,
Oh, totally.
Like the problem with that I had with Bo Peep, like she was like a cool character, but the problem with that she was just kind of like this basic kind of like the Woody's love interest,
I would argue this movie shows their bond stronger than like any other Toy Story movie.
Yeah, definitely.
And it just improves on it, like, all the way through. I really loved like the way that like they reminisce, like the scenes where they just like talk to each other about like how much they've missed each other and like how like things have changed and like whatever else. It just feels like so natural and bittersweet that it just feels like any other kind of conversation you would have like with an old friend visiting or something like that.
It feels very genuine, yeah.
I really like her redesign too.
Yeah, she's not even really redesigned that much. Really, they just kind of added a bit more details there.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people I remember were complaining about like some of the redesigns, and I was kind of skeptical as well. But like people were kind of complaining about the redesigns of like certain characters that were seen from the previous movies, like seeing like Kid Andy, which was really only at the beginning, anyways.
Yeah, it was like less than 15 minutes. I'm pretty sure.
It was less than like 5 minutes that you saw Kid Andy on screen, probably.
Yeah, that's what I heard a lot. That and people that were with me when I was watching, they were like, "Oh, why does Andy look like weird?" And I was like, "Just don't worry about it."
Yeah, exactly. And then you have like Bo Peep, which honestly, like Bo Peep's design, like proved significantly. Same with the sheep. Like like I can actually tell what the sheep like as like a character model is now.
It had like no textures in like the first two movies, but like
Yeah.
It looks stupid in the first.
It looks like this like freakish 3-headed sheep, like some kind of like parody of like Cerberus that you'd see in like fucking Animaniacs or something.
Exactly. New side characters though. Actually, not main, but side characters. The new ones. I keep forgetting her name, but like the
Gabby.
Gabby, and then you also have the little police girl that like killed out Bo.
Giggle McDimples.
I love her. She's so cute. She's so cute. I really love her design. Like she's just like adorable.
Yeah. I love her design too, honestly.
Her facial expressions are like easily like I think like are some of the best ones in the entire movie. With like the way that like they designed her face.
They're like she has like kind of like a 2D face, kind of like the Lego movie.
Exactly. Yeah. They kind of play around with that. Who's the character that Keanu Reeves plays?
Duke Kaboom.
Duke Kaboom. I love Duke Kaboom.
He's the best character I think he's like the best side character. The best new one.
Legit.
Dude, Keanu Reeves is on fire this year, dude.
John Wick 3, was it Cyberpunk? He's gonna be in Cyberpunk. What else?
They're rebooting Bill and Ted.
Oh yeah, Bill and Ted's coming. Well, it's not a reboot; it's a sequel. I'm pretty sure it's like gonna be a Bill and Ted 3. Yeah, so there's that. Like Keanu Reeves' career is like, I mean, thanks to John Wick, it's really making a comeback. But like this is probably like his funniest character in a while is Duke Kaboom. It was like so funny.
It's like it's kind of funny because this is his like third voice acting performance of his entire career, but like it feels like it's something that he's wanted to do for a very long time.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Because he's just having a blast, just like posing and just making vocal noises and shit, which is just really funny.
Yeah.
I think like one of the funniest parts in the movie is where his backstory, how it like shows the Keanu, like the parodies, like the Evil Knievel commercials, where like they just have like this like very fake, very like obviously scripted commercial where he just jumps through the hoop and like there's fire and stuff. And then the kid gets it for Christmas and then it doesn't go through the hoop, so he throws it away. And he's just like, it was just a commercial, it's obviously not real. It was just really funny. The entire theater just like cracked up.
I would have hit that kid, honestly. Fuck that kid.
Friggin' Canuck.
Also, another thing that I really like, this is a very minor like character cameo, but
Sure.
they brought back Combat Carl, who was in like the Halloween special.
Oh yeah.
It's like the same voice actor.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. I keep forgetting about the specials. I know that they make them, but like I keep forgetting to like remind myself of them because like I always just think about like the movies.
Yeah, I get that. What's even cooler about like Combat Carl is that he was actually in the first movie. He's the toy that gets blown up by Sid in the beginning of the movie.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's actually like one of the other funniest scenes like in Toy Story to me is just like the scene in the first movie where the toy gets blown up.
Yeah. Except like they pulled a Nick Fury on Combat Carl and he's black now.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, maybe it's a different soldier. I don't know.
I honestly kind of like it. I think it kind of because like in the first movie, it's just kind of a generic looking army man kind of guy.
Yeah,
But in
yeah,
this,
it fits.
he feels like a more like a GI Joe, like a direct GI Joe parody in this, which I really like.
Yeah, it fits.
I already mentioned this, but what do you guys think about the roles that Key and Peele played?
Oh yeah, I was
Mm.
actually expecting for them to like be really annoying in this movie because like I thought they were gonna use like that really, that kind of sassy,
Ghetto
humor.
sounding.
Yeah, that they were
Like,
using in like the teaser
Ghetto is
trailer.
like the that politically incorrect term, but that's basically what it is.
Yeah, pretty much. But like in this movie, I think they're probably one of the funniest sub characters.
Yeah.
I was expecting to not like them either, and then like over the course of the movie, like I don't know, like the way that like it was similar to like every other character that I was expecting to not really be all that well put together, and like like it would contrast with the rest of the characters in the movie. They really didn't. I thought they were good.
They had a good dynamic with Buzz.
The scene where like they're beating up Buzz and like the
Yeah.
head kept squeaking like the first movie
Yeah, I
was
love
like the
that.
funniest thing.
I forgot that Buzz's head squeaks when you hit it. I think that was like a callback to the first movie, right? Like when you get slapped by Woody in the first movie, just something goes like
Yeah.
this really like tiny squeak noise. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. I freaking love
Like in those multiple fantasies where they just attack an old woman.
this is somewhat Toy Story related just because of like the squeaky noise that like his head makes, but like one of the funniest things I remember from this old video called Toys Gone Wild is this part where like they keep editing the part where at the in the video where like Woody keeps hitting him and it never stops and it just like
There's like an explosion.
there's an explosion and there's like the things where it's like I think it's from Unreal Tournament or whatever, and it like the deep voice does the headshot monster kill, and like it just keeps keeps replaying the sound of like the squeaky head when he gets punched in the face.
Toys Gone Wild. That was like one of the early YTPs that I remember watching. I was so hooked on that. I was like, yo, this is some funny shit.
Yeah, I first saw it. I think I might have been 10 when I first saw that. Obviously, I didn't get all the jokes back then, but like that's like one of the videos that I still think is like actually funny like all these years later. I'm not even big on YTP.
Wasn't there like a joke that Slinky Dog was like smoking? He was like a gangster.
Yeah.
That way he has the raspy voice.
That video is a classic, dude. I love it.
It's a classic alongside Freddy Ruined Sam's Life.
Anything from Crobo Productions.
Yeah.
Anything from Crobo.
Yeah. I you know what's funny enough is that like I know the guy who actually drew his icon like all those years ago, like on I ended up meeting him on
Does he
Twitter.
follow you and
it's
stuff?
pretty cool. We don't follow each other, but like I've talked to him occasionally. His name is JM Durden, I believe, if you want to give a shout out there. He's a good guy. He does a lot of sexy art.
I like his superhero designs are really cool.
Yeah, indeed. I like it. I like it a lot. But if anybody was wondering, oh, who drew Crobo's icon, like that's him. Yeah, it was a long time ago, but yeah, it's just one of those weird things where it's just kind of like you're online social media as a kid, and you never think those things will coming right back to you, like when you go on Twitter or whatever, and they really do. Sometimes they really do.
So back to the movie. Is there any like favorite jokes from the movie that you want to mention? Like I think the weirdest joke for me, it just felt really out of place for like a Toy Story movie, but it was also really funny. Was when like they're trying to find a way to get the key from the old lady, and so like they have like these like several fantasies where they just beat her up, but like they have the one where like they wait till like she drives home, she takes a bath, then she goes to sleep, and then they show up like behind her bed and just like beat her up while she's in bed.
The other funniest part actually involves both of them too. Again, with Buzz, is like the part on the rooftop, which is a continuation from where they were kicking him in the head. But they find him on the roof and they tackle him, and like the sound of the squeaky head comes back, and it's repeated like a lot when they roll down the roof. Yeah, I like that a lot. I think like they were honestly like as far as like a comedic relief character in a Toy Story movie, the ones that they introduced in this movie were probably like the most solid that they've had in a really long time. Yeah, there wasn't really like any characters that I remember being that memorable or funny from like 3, aside from maybe Ken, that was played by Michael Keaton, I believe. But
Batman, baby.
I mean, like I think in terms of I mean, like for real, just like discussing this movie here and everything, like the more we talk about it, like even now the more that I like it, because it's like it has better side characters. It has, I argue, like just like a better resolution to the series, and like it has better, like it has a better tone and like, a less grimy atmosphere and everything. Like I think it's really fun, and it's like a bittersweet conclusion, Like I prefer to 3.
I really did like the kind of almost like a heist kind of vibe that 3 had. I think it was probably the most exciting tone for like a Toy Story movie, but I think this one, it feels like a more competent finale, even if I don't necessarily think it's quite as satisfying as 3. I still think it's a better movie.
Okay. I can see it. Yeah, I can see that. I think like as far as like stakes though, like I think like the stakes as far as they were high in 3, they peaked in 2. At least for me personally, because like you can't beat the climax when they're like chasing after the plane and everything. That stuff is awesome still.
I think that was probably the worst because he was going to go to Japan. I'm like, how the fuck is he get back?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
How
like,
the fuck can you get back? I mean, you can get back from what? Sunnyside, but you can't go back from Japan.
yeah, exactly. Like that I think was like the highest the stakes have ever been in any of the movies. But the point of 4 isn't about that. It's a much more, again, it's a more intimate, like closer, solo kind of character type of story compared to like the way that the other movies were about like the whole group of the toys. I think this one was more about like Woody and Bo.
It's a very character-driven movie. Like pretty much everything happens because of a character's decision. Like even Forky's creation is pretty much Woody's fault in general.
well, fall. I mean, that's a little harsh.
Well, yeah, not fault, but like he's indirectly responsible for creating him.
It is because of Woody. That's probably part of also why like he felt so responsible. Maybe there was like a little bit of a dad dynamic because it was kind of like, oh well, he was kind of like responsible for like getting the creation.
The creation he still has to maintain.
It's kind of cute because like he's also kind of like a father figure to Bonnie, like indirectly too.
A father figure than her actual father.
Yeah, her father was like he was pretty nice, but like he was like getting like super angry at times. Like, God damn it, my fucking car won't start.
He's a spur.
You can see him just like trying not to like break down in front of his 5-year-old daughter, but like you can just hear it in his voice. He wants to fucking.
I want to get into this little kind of thing because when I was watching this movie, right, I was very curious. So they made Forky out of this like just trash, right? So what does this mean for like sentiency in like Toy Story? Like, is anything just can anything just be sentient just by just imagination alone? Like for example, if I get a fucking like a pool ball, like a ball for a pool table, if in my imagination, can that be considered a sentient toy?
Well, I mean, like in the first movie, there was a living hockey puck, so maybe.
Oh, that's right. That is right. But does the kid just have to imagine it in order for it to be like?
The movie kind of says like even they don't know, at the end.
Yeah, I mean they really they didn't really explain that whole thing, but it was like, I want to find out the logistics of.
I don't think it should be explained honestly, because one of my favorite things about like Toy Story and like most Pixar stuff in general is that the world building is very like casual and very subtle. like the rules in Toy Story like never really they kind of explain that there are rules, but they never really elaborate on quite what they are.
Well, it kind of feels as if it's one of those things where it's like similar to like the way that we don't know everything that like really the way it is in our own lives. It's kind of like a reflection of that because it's like, well, why is these things this way? But like we don't really know why, and maybe we really don't have to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Also, like
It's just funny
this
too.
is this
We're not even taking it seriously. It's just like a funny thing to think
this is a
about.
minor thing
Yeah,
that like
exactly.
this has kind of unrelated. Not it's kind of unrelated to like what we're talking about now, but it's still related to the movie. You know, like the part in the antique scene where they go into the pinball machine. And there's a little club there. When I found out that like I remember when they knocked on the door and then suddenly I saw Tin Toy. I actually like fucking yelled in the theater because I was just so excited to see him. Because
Yeah.
like they referred to him by name for the first time, as if he was like an actual character that they all knew, even though like because I used to watch Pixar shorts a lot when I was really young.
Oh yeah, I did also. He also appeared in Toy Story 2 also when they were skimming through the TV.
And then the toys from in Tin Toy, there's like this really clever cameo in Toy Story 3. You know the parts where the toys are like hiding from the daycare once like the kids show up. If you look very closely in the corner under like the couch, you can see all the toys from Tin Toy hiding under there.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was wondering where that was. I knew he was cameoing somewhere else.
No, like not Tin Toy himself, but like the other toy when he,
The
like the
other
elephant and
toys.
like the robot. Those are the toys that were hiding under the couch from the
Oh,
baby. You can see them in the
yeah,
daycare.
yeah, yeah. Again, I just I'm a little blurry. I gotta fix that. I gotta rewatch like 1, 2, and 3 again.
So yeah, it was really cool to see like this Pixar character from the '80s kind of remastered in HD.
The interaction, I mean, I don't know if this counts as spoiler kind of territory. Do you think we should kind of go into that now, or
Yeah,
how do you feel?
so we're in the spoiler territory. If you want to not hear the spoilers, skip to 57 minutes 32 seconds. Repeat. 57 minutes 32 seconds.
The interaction that Tintoy I noticed had with Woody was that like it was a little bit like he gave him a little bit of a stare at first, you know what I mean? Like he kind of gave it a little bit of he kind of like gave Woody a little bit of a stink eye because like the whole production of Toy Story, Woody basically took Tintoy's place, so it's kind of so it's like like Tin Toy gives him like the stink eye a little bit, and like Woody just kind of like like he kind of like he kind of does like the embarrassed or like kind of like awkward pose where he's just like
Yeah, which is it's
like,
funny because like in the context of the movie, like you just think that as like oh he's just kind of suspicious of a new toy, but like when you actually go into Pixar's
right,
history, it's like kind of like a really clever little in joke.
yeah, exactly. Now this was also part of a spoiler towards the end with the climax. This moment, this was another funny joke that I really liked, but like is really important to the way that the whole movie turns out. Was with Duke Kaboom and like the part with the Ferris wheel. Yeah, where like he like jumps like even further out like with the wire and everything like with the flags and stuff, and like there's like the slow motion shot of him like just he has to go through like the hoop or whatever, I guess, like with the lights on it, which is I guess like an O or a 0 or something, and he goes through it and then like he hits his head or something like that, and like the sparks fly out. He's just like, oh, he couldn't do it 100%, but he did it. He did it. And it's just like I was just like wondering like with the build up, and he's just like I can do this, and he's just like Duke Kaboom, and like he just goes through it, and like I just knew he was gonna screw up somewhere, but I was just like wondering like where and like how would it affect. It's just I didn't want anything the bad to happen to him, but it's just like the way it turned out was just funny because like he just hit his head and the sparks flew everywhere.
Yeah, that was really funny. I love that. Isn't pretty much all his jokes are like very like almost like 100% hit for me. This is another kind of clever little thing. You know, like all the toys that like talk to Woody while he's in the closet.
Oh
Yeah.
You know, like all those are actually cameos from a bunch of like really old.
Yeah, I noticed that. Like I was trying to like look through the the cast list in the credits, and I saw Carol Burnett in there, and it's like, wait a second.
It was Mel Brooks, Carol Burnett, Betty White, and Carl Reiner. The best thing is like all their characters are just puns on their real names. So like
Oh my god.
Mel Brooks is called Melephant Brooks. Carol Burnett is Cheryl Burnett. Betty White is Bitey White, and then Carl Reiner is Carl Rhinoceros. And it's another thing that kind of just adds to like like the whole thing how they're like old kind of like retired toys that they're played by really old actors.
Bro, like respect to old Hollywood actors and actresses. Seriously, I love
especially
them.
Mel Brooks, dude. Because I love that guy.
Mel Brooks is awesome. Betty White is awesome. Carol Burnett is awesome. I mean, Carl Reiner is a classic, dude. I mean, like, how can you go wrong with those four?
Yeah, no, for real. So let's get into this the big leagues. The thing that everyone's talking about, the ending. So what do you guys think the ending?
The ending.
Yep.
So when the gang meets up, Buzz and Woody are having a bit of a dilemma on whether or not to leave Bo Peep and go with them, or like kind of stay with them and just let them go on their own. Like it did hit me a lot. Like I was like fuck, like what's gonna happen?
Yeah,
It hit me too.
I'll be honest. Like I saw the ending coming from a mile away, but I still got really emotional at the end. Especially when Woody gives the bat to Jesse. I just kind of like I started like like that part. Like oh my god.
Yeah, the shot that the first shot that actually got me was essentially from like Woody's perspective, and it's just like the shot of like going from left to right, and you just see all the toys like you've essentially just grown up with like as the characters and stuff like that, and it's just like wow, you're like really looking at it for like one last time.
Yeah.
It's just like
it's a much bigger like gut punch than 3 ever was, honestly.
Dude, my heart in that scene couldn't take it.
I was really trying to like hold back and try not to cry in front of my friends, but like even my friends were losing.
My mom was watching the movie with me, and she was to my right, and I was trying to like really hold it in, but I couldn't. I had like a little bit of a silent tear going down my face.
Yeah, my mom was actually in the theater with like she went the same day as me, like at an earlier time. Yeah, she told me there was like a woman like behind her that was like audibly just sobbing. It's like I feel so bad for her. Like, come on, like it was. Goddamn, like it hit a lot of people in the theater. I heard a lot of like sniffing.
No, this movie was like amazing with like like it's one of those things where it's like people like it's just like oh people like theaters suck. Full house theaters should just stop being a thing. Well, no, I kind of argue against that, at least with like the experiences that I have like with this judging on this movie alone, because it's like people were invested, people were laughing, people were crying, and it's just like people were there with you, man. Like that was like that makes it like all the more important for like a theater experience to be like that sometimes.
That's what I think is like kind of like really underrated about theaters, is that people just like they always talk about how like theater should die out because like streaming and shit is gonna like gonna take over eventually, but like
there's always gonna be a niche like audience for it anyway, I feel like.
But like with theaters, you just get a very human experience. Like you watch a movie with a bunch of people you don't know yet. It's like it's kind of like watching a movie with like friends in a way.
I mean, it is kind of funny to like when I was watching Endgame, like a lot of, like what people were saying was funny, but there was this one guy, there was this one guy who kept yelling like this really gay, like just he was just more obnoxious. I mean, it's funny when people are like laughing and clapping together.
Yeah.
But it's just like another thing when he was like, "Oh hell yeah, Hulk!"
You thought your experience with Endgame was bad. You haven't even heard mine, dude. Okay, there was a 3-year-old toddler babbling in the back for 2 hours. The entire fucking movie. Running down the hall.
Toddler there. Why?
I don't know why you bring a toddler to a 3-hour movie and not expect him to like sit down.
Because I was talking to my aunt and she was also gonna see Toy Story 4, but she has 2 kids, but like one of them is an infant, and she was like, "No fucking way, I'm gonna bring that infant in."
Yeah.
Toy Story 4.
But that kid was just running down the halls, just like screaming his name, asking for his dad to like, and it's just like I saw like Detective Pikachu and Toy Story 4 after this, so like 2 different theaters, and they were both both movies are like directly like targeting a kid demographic, and like yet the kids there are so much more well behaved, which is really funny. Yet this movie that's like made for like you have to be at least like 12 and up to like even watch it, and you have like a 3-year-old just like babbling in the background. You can't even. All the emotional moments are kind of ruined because
To close off the spoiler section, would you say that the this ending is better than 3?
Yes.
honestly, yeah. Even though it is less satisfying to me personally, I do think it is a.
Honestly, I did think it was. I think it was a satisfying ending, but it was just like it was satisfying in 3 because you see all the toys, they're all together, and they. I don't know. It just like it hit me harder in 3. I mean, don't get me wrong, it did hit me when this came up.
This ending hit me harder. I won't lie. I think another thing we forgot to bring up is that unlike all the previous movies, this movie has no villain. I thought that was really interesting
Oh
too.
yeah. Gabby. She's a villain for a little bit, but then you really understand her.
It's just she's a misunderstood like character really and everything. I really enjoyed the direction that she was taking because like initially like when I saw like the idea of just like they're gonna go into like a seemingly kind of creepy like antique shop and everything, and there's gonna be like this older toy and stuff, and I'm thinking like, oh no, are they gonna repeat 3 again? And then like it
She feels less like just like a selfish character and more just a character who's just out of options and just really desperate.
Yeah. That was like I think that was just more interesting to have like, like for like I guess like for Toy Story, like in most other cases I wouldn't really even say this, but like to have a misunderstood character is more powerful to me in this type of movie than it is to have like a villain.
Yeah, like Lotso's just kind of like an irredeemable bastard for the entire movie, and he just kind of. I think he's still probably my favorite Pixar villain, but I just kind of found this take more interesting.
No, that she did, obtain her goal. I think that's funny. Like that's like a much nicer ending for a villain than like what happened with Lotso.
Because
I mean, it is funny, but regardless.
Yeah, like
I think we already mentioned this earlier, but I kind of like I like the antique store setting more than the daycare personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said so. But yeah.
I think like the daycare is like kind of like those things where like it's like it looks like it kind of has like I actually really like it in the context of the movie, but it's just kind of like that kind of gimmicky like oh it looks like a friendly kids place, but it's actually really dangerous. Ooh, but like
the facade is like it's a
Yeah.
nice kids place, but on the inside
it's actually an
it really
evil
is-
concentration camp for toys. It's like World War II. Jesus Christ.
It's just like it's just gross to me. Like the setting in like 3 is gross and like all grimy and dark. It's like why would I even want to like have like a setting of a Toy Story movie to be here?
I mean, I think that was their intentions.
It was like even then like I found Sid's room more appealing because like at least like that was like funny.
Yeah, because he's just like this kind of rock and roll loser kid.
Yeah,
But you're like
yeah.
really forced. Like he has like Ozzy Osbourne posters on his wall.
Yeah. I mean, he turns into a garbage man for a reason, probably.
Yeah. Also, I really I think like going back to that, I think the setting of like the antique store is a lot more interesting to me. Not just because like I found like antique stores interesting in general, but I like how like this place is less dark and just more ambient and mysterious.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't really know
Yeah,
what to
like that.
expect in like any area.
Just like an antique store.
Yeah.
The ending for Gabby Gabby as well. Like I agree. Like what a like this movie is essentially like I feel like it really is kind of like if you were like it's kind of like it almost feels like an optional sequel to me, but like it's one of those things where it's like if you didn't really like the feel of 3's ending, hey, here's 4. Maybe it'll like fix some of that for you because it's like a lot of the issues that I had in 3 are practically the opposite in 4.
Going back to Gabby Gabby, I think she like her ending was actually like genuinely really heartwarming. I really liked that scene. It was like actually kind of made me a bit misty eyed. It was like very sweet.
And the with Woody's speaker box, like I was thinking like yeah, like what are they gonna do with that? Like like they keep hinting it up and everything, and it's just like and then in the end it's like Woody doesn't need it. He just doesn't need it anymore. It's like kind of like a lot of the burden on his shoulders is just like lifted off in this movie, and it's like it's bittersweet, but it's kind of like, it feels right. Like it just feels right for him, and then it's just like all ties together really warmly for
I
him.
think the best way to
That's what
describe this
matters.
movie is like it is bittersweet, but it tends to shift more towards sweet than it is bitter.
Exactly. I think like 3 ended being like more, like that was also bittersweet, but it was like depressing kind of like, and it was more leaned on bitter to me.
Yeah. Especially with the daycare, I think.
Yeah.
And, like the clown that was voiced by, but like a
Um
lot of the stuff was like really intense and kind of just like I'll admit like I thought it was like pretty cool to see that stuff, but like for a kid I'd imagine like it'd give them fucking nightmares,
right,
With like
yeah.
Lhasa like basically like, just like yelling at a baby towards the end of the movie. It's just like wow, like fuck. It's like calm down. And then there's the fucking the camera monkey. Lots of like really creepy stuff like that.
Ugh, I hate that thing.
That monkey, like I remember everyone in the theater, like I remember seeing that in theaters. I remember just like getting nightmares for that for several weeks.
Ugh,
I was just
jeez.
terrified of that thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame anyone. I hate that thing. Like my
Although
mom hates that thing.
there is one thing that 3 does have over 4 though, and Zurg is not in Toy Story 4, unfortunately.
Ooh.
Mm.
You know what? Neither are the little green men, the
Yeah,
LGMs.
but that's because Arlie Ermy died.
No, the army men. I meant the little green men, like the aliens, like the
Oh,
ones that are
well, they
just
were in
like,
this movie.
like, ah.
They were in this movie. They were just really subdued.
Were they?
Yeah.
Where were
Yeah, they were. They were in this movie.
Where were they?
They were in the RV, and they were in the RV.
Oh, you know
Like
what?
I remember this one scene, like when Woody pulls out Forky, they just like did their like their ooh thing, but that was pretty much it.
Oh, okay. You know what? You know what? I need to get my memory checked. Maybe
Just
then.
going back to this is like kind of like an off point, but just I think Zurg is just such a funny fucking character.
Zurg is hilarious.
Just like this really like he feels just like a comedic like parody of Darth Vader. Like it feels like all those jokes you make about Darth Vader is like that's his actual character.
That's my boy.
I love that in 2 like he just like I'm gonna play with my dad. It's like yeah, like come here, boy. That's my son. And then when he appears in the end credits at 3 where he shows up at the daycare and they're just like reading him and it's just really funny. And then you see him like chilling on the lawn chair, I think with sunglasses on.
Nah, but just going to Toy Story 2, I think my favorite scene would have to be when the toys are riding in the Pizza Planet van.
Oh yeah.
It's just
Definitely. I love that scene.
2 is probably I
such a good
think
scene.
2 is probably like the most consistently funny Toy Story movie.
So, what would you guys say are like the best to worst Toy Story movies? And I'm sure that's gonna be hard because
Yeah.
all the Toy Story movies are like amazing.
Honestly,
but regardless,
despite my flaws I have with it, I think 3 is still probably my favorite. Although I think it's like I think 4 is on par with 3, and I think has better closure.
mm-hmm.
And then
so what I think that Toy Story 2 absolutely is my favorite. It's such a good movie.
Yeah, totally.
But,
the movie's amazing.
But I think Toy Story 3 and 4 are around the same level, like kind of neck and neck for number 2.
Yeah.
And just like the original Toy Story is like last because
Yeah.
it is a really funny movie, but I think there is some flaws with it,
It
now that are
has like first movie syndrome,
yeah, first movie syndrome. It's aged really really
'Cause, like,
poorly. It looks like shit. Most of it looks like shit now, like the humans and the
I
dog.
still give Toy Story a lot of credit because for the first of its kind. It's actually pretty amazing that like Toy Story was the first. And like you see a
Yeah.
bunch of animated movies released afterwards, like years after, and they look worse than Toy Story. It's like wow.
Yeah.
It can hold up like a lot better now than like some of the movies that like I've even seen from like 2002. Like some of the can I just like say like how ugly like mid 2000s CGI movies could be outside of Pixar? Like Space Chimps and Fly Me to the Moon or whatever. Like
So like I just remembered what I was gonna say. Do you remember like what do you think of like the mid credit scenes this time around?
Oh, in Toy Story 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were nice.
I like the best one was the one with Ducky and Bunny where they just grow huge and shoot lasers out of their eyes and kill everybody. That was fucking
Again, like it really, really weirdly unfitting, but also still funny.
yeah. And then there's like one thing I really like. You know how like the little like Arctic combat Carl doesn't get a high five throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
I like to like at the like way after the credits, like they do the Pixar logo, except instead of Luxo Jr., it's like Duke Kaboom. He jumps on the eye with his motorcycle, and then he finally gives that comeback Carl a high five. Get a high five because I felt really bad for him. He's just a nice guy, but he didn't get a high five. And then he finally got one. Yeah.
So I think we're done with our discussion on Toy Story 4. It was a pretty good discussion,
Yeah.
honestly.
So yeah, one of the best.
I think we covered it pretty adequately.
I would argue it's arguably the best Toy Story movie to date. Honestly, it's very high. Yeah, especially for a movie that had such low expectations from everybody. Like it's so much better than like anyone could. I think anyone would expect.
Because if you listen to like those old podcasts, earlier podcasts, I was really no, why are they doing this? Like they should have never made a fourth one. Like, you know, at best hesitant, at worst hostile to that.
Honestly, I was
skeptical. Skeptical for several years.
I was probably skeptical at worst, but I was still willing to give it a chance when it comes out because I really love Toy Story, and I didn't think they'd fuck it up, and they didn't.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like looking at trailers. I don't like looking at reviews. I mean, that's kind of ironic coming from me who like I used to be a reviewer, but really not anymore. But, you know, like I just wanted to give it like a fair shot, just like give it like a blind chance, see like, okay, maybe I'll go in this raw and just see what comes out. I mean, that's a really horrible analogy just thinking about it because someone's gonna really misconstrue that, but you know what I mean.
Don't worry about it. Don't think about it too much.
Brucesnoop is canceled.
Mysterious Mr. Brucesnoop.
The mysterious Mr. Brucesnoop.
Animated atrocities.
I wonder if there's like been a cartoon reviewer who's been canceled. Has there? I just hate using that word. Just canceled.
Yeah, he had a good run.
It just reeks of like Twitter.
He had 6 seasons in the movie, but he's out. I think like I forgot his name, but it was like this one dude like fucking. You know that one dude is like this like really like young looking guy who like always talked about 90s cartoon. They just left everything, deleted all his videos, and like just kind of like chastise his fans for like worrying about him and shit. I forgot his name.
Scoutfly.
Yeah, stuff with Scoutfly. That fucking asshole.
Dude, at first I thought it was funny, but I was like, dude, you're a spurg. Like,
it's like he was born in 1996, trying to reminisce in like 1991. It's like whatever. And there's problems with a lot of them, but like he's the only one to like outright admit it himself was like just fake. Like he just like kind of pretended to do all this shit so he could get like.
I mean, I used to be that kind of thing. That this kind of this pseudo, I don't know, just the thing that Scoutfly was like. Oh, I would always beef with these cartoon reviewers, talk shit about them, but now it's just like
even like
gay.
Even with like stuff like Mr. Reiner, like I can give him enough shit to like fertilize the entire country, but like at least he actually gives a shit about animation at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, like, as long as it's, like, your passion for, like, you know, whatever you're into, like, with history or, like, you know, cartoons or both. I mean, like, you know, like, as long as that's your thing, it's like, hey, whatever.
I'm just more into the industry. I really like the industry side of animation. I'm not really into watching all of the episodes of all of the cartoons. Like, that's not my thing.
Yeah.
Like, anything with the industries and, like, the history of them is just really fascinating.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fine. Yeah, Bruce. You still gotta like. If anything, though, I still gotta urge you. If whenever those new Looney Tunes shorts come out, you should watch those because I know you like old school Looney Tunes stuff, and they're trying to like they're going full out. They want to replicate like the late 30s, early 40s era, and you know, like I know you like that era and everything, like Tashlin, Clampett, Avery, early Chuck Jones.
Tex Avery's my boy.
It must be like really cathartic to finally see the era gain recognition now. Yeah, and like it's like it's pretty like satisfying to see because these cartoons have been kind of like ignored for like a pretty long time. But like now you're seeing the studio themselves. Let's like say, yeah, let's do it again. Let's like give it the biggest budget we can. Let's get some really talented cartoonists. Let's make something great. And I'm really just happy that's happening. I'm glad they actually seem to care about Looney Tunes now. Which is like a stark contrast, like about like how Joe Dante's his work on when he worked on Looney Tunes back in action, he described how unpleasant it was. He talked about how like the heads of Warner Brothers, that they don't give a shit about these characters or their history. They just see them as, you know, icons that they can plaster over everything. That's why
Yeah.
Space Jam exists. It's just a fucking commercial. But then now, like, you see, like,
Space Jam. I love Space Jam.
Space Jam was fucking retarded. I hate that movie.
When's 2 coming
Like
out?
2022, I think.
Oh my god.
They're gonna have
2021. That's what
they're gonna have like fucking LeBron James in it, I think.
LeBron James, baby. They should have.
It's
who else?
rumored that Eric Bauza is gonna be playing Bugs. And then what else? Who else is gonna be in that? You know, the first movie had Bill Murray. What if this had like someone like Josh Gad or something? Oh my god, dude. No, the first one had Wayne Knight. I feel like Josh Gad is this generation's Wayne Knight, except he's not funny.
Bruce, you wanna start us off?
Yeah, sure. Let me just. So, if you want to ask us a question, just go on Twitter, and whenever I announce SnoopCast, which I'm pretty sure that's gonna be pretty hard because half of my Twitter posts are just shit posts at this point. But just, or if you go and come to our just follow our Twitter account or come to our Discord server, you can just easily ask questions for us, and we'll just announce when we'll be doing a podcast of which topics. So it'll be easy.
Well, first question comes from Shade X, and this question is: do you think Pixar should still do sequels, or should they just focus on original properties like they plan on doing? What sequel to a Pixar film do you want?
That's a good question. I hear like I hear Pixar's like from going on forward. I think I hear Toy Story 4 is their last sequel.
It makes sense, like after like an entire decade of like focusing on that, especially like with executive meddling from Disney. But
I only really loved 2 sequels out of those like 5, I think.
Yeah, me too.
And that was this and Incredibles.
The only thing I would really want is like an actual Monsters Inc. 2.
Yeah.
Because I heard the potential idea for that one was to have Mike and Sully stuck in the human world.
Oh shit.
Rather than the other movie being like, oh well, the human is stuck in the monster world. Like, what would that be like? So, I thought like that the idea of that movie, like a Monsters Inc. 2 with the roles reversed, would be interesting somehow.
Yeah, and like you know about like how Monsters Inc. is getting a TV show next year.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of looking forward to that.
Other than that, leave it alone. No more sequels, please.
I'm really glad like the TV show is having John Goodman and Billy Crystal come back.
Really?
Yeah. They're gonna be voicing Mike and Sully again.
Okay, that is pretty cool then. Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
This is also on. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think like going back on the sequel thing. I think the problem with like most of these Disney sequels is that, you know, like you always think about like some of these movies like Finding Nemo and like Monsters Inc. and like how these characters are just so lovable and you want to see them again. But like when you see the actual sequels, like you realize like there isn't really much more you can do with them that wasn't done in the first movie.
Right. Yeah.
Which I think. Is
the only thing with Monsters Inc. 2, I think that like they could actually expand on that if it was like, oh well, what if they explore the human world instead of just like, oh well, the monsters world is already done. Well, what now?
Yeah, they do a little bit of that in University, but like not really enough.
Yeah, and like I think University is kind of lame, honestly. It's kind of like a lame movie.
I honestly like it a lot more than most people, but I understand why people find it disappointing.
That's fair. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just kind of like not as good. Bruce, you got any comments? You got any comments on like how do you think like should Pixar should do more sequels in the future if possible, and
they should really limit the sequels?
Yeah, and
what's that new film they're making? What is it called?
I actually forget the movie's name at the moment, but it's like the one with Chris Pratt and Tom Holland.
Onward.
Onward. All right. And what sequel to a Pixar film do you want? And I responded with Monsters Inc. 2, where like, the whole original concept was Mike and Sully stuck in the human world rather than a human stuck in the monster world. Like that's what I had heard about it. And I thought like, you know what? An actual Monsters Inc. 2 would be cool.
I think that is. I agree with you on that. Honestly, I think that would be an ideal Pixar sequel if I could pick just one.
And then like every other movie is just like, please no, Pixar, leave it alone. Like no more. But what do you think, Bruce?
Nah, no more. I mean, I like some, because I know they're doing the short films and the little episodes on that Disney streaming service that they're doing. But other than that, it's just, yeah, that's all we need. No more movies.
No more movies.
Like people
man.
said 3 was a perfect conclusion, but like this is like actually like literally a perfect conclusion. Like you can't do anything else.
Don't make a Toy Story 5, please. Something else I forgot to mention. This is John Lasseter's final credit role for a Pixar movie, like whether it's like, story writing, directing, whatever. Like it's just like his last appearance probably on like the credits of a Pixar movie, and it's really the end of an era for this company. So, in my opinion, if this is really his last movie that he's involved with Pixar that established the entire company to basically begin with as like, like a major blockbuster money making machine for Disney, end it here. No more. Now, another question is okay, Bruce, get ready for this.
What's up?
This question is more directed for Meatman, but Bruce and Ian.
Which he's not here.
Yeah, he's not here. And he's not here, by the way. What is your reaction to Mumkey's response to Mr. Meatman's video on his cheating and Mumkey indefinitely postponing the Mr. Meatman Monkey soy or SOTY debate? Sody debate. Yeah.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah. I know vague details and everything, but Bruce, if you want, you can comment.
People want to know my thing with Mumkey. I mean, I don't talk to him. It's just like, I did have him on that podcast, but that's like, I did talk to him like once in a blue moon, but that's really how I talk to him. But I'm more, I do talk to Meatman, and I do talk to a lot of people in that community that were involved with that stuff. Meatman's video was good. It was a very good video, but I think there was some things with Meatman that I wish I could talk to him about on this podcast. So, and I probably will in private. But the thing that I had with the problem that I had with Meatman is that shortly after the video, he tried to get on Sodi, which is State of the YouTube, that podcast run by Mumkey, Lemon, who else? Rusty Cage. And he kind of omitted all this information, but Mumkey kind of, and I am less so, Rusty and Lemon, they provided details that Meatman was kind of forcefully asking for like several people to be on that thing, like have like 5 or like around that number, like 5 people for that podcast. And it was just like, dude, that's kind of just dumb, like to have like 5 people there, because you made this whole video talking about this whole thing, so you're really gonna have these other people just kind of just in the background, just taking the side of Meatman and like occasionally saying something that's like, it's not something really that good, but But I don't know. I watched Mumkey's response video, and it seemed very kind of manipulative in certain ways. Like, he would show the cat, so it'll be kind of like more sympathetic to him. And what else? Just like just the fact that he's gonna stay with that furry pedophile. It's just, why? I mean, he said that he loves her, but he should still know that he knows now like the stuff that she's done. So
it feels disingenuous with like his whole
very
response.
very very disingenuous. That's all I have to say. But that's the only problem that I have with there were a lot of people that were like, oh, fuck Mumkey. He was like, I'm still like, Mumkey's like a degenerate for what he did, but I'm still gonna watch his stuff.
Separate art from the artist, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard for me, honestly, to separate the art from the artist, but I've definitely learned to do that.
And now, this is a question that I got actually in a DM, and this is from a friend of mine called Phil, and his @name on Twitter is Phil's Fun Corner. He does some pretty cool art. So, he he has two questions, and he says his first one is, what do you guys feel it is about social media, Twitter especially, that makes folks feel so bold and quick to be jerks to one another? And the other being, what's something that you'd like to see more out of television animation?
So out of that first question, obviously anonymity. There's like that's an obvious aspect of social media. You can say literally whatever you want. There's no repercussions. I mean, obviously, if you get caught with that, there's obviously gonna be some repercussions. But other than that, like, you're free to say whatever you want. You're not really restricted by social pressure to
if you go after
kind of restrict your language.
If you go after somebody, no one can really call you out for it unless they're also online.
Yeah.
I feel like there's like an entire mind game when you're online sometimes, where it feels as if it's like it's its own little world where you can just like roam around like entirely.
And sometimes you really can't understand that they're like real people and stuff like that.
Exactly.
You're kind of like just caught up in that whole stuff.
It does mess with you a little bit. It's kind of
I mean,
kind of hard
it
to
honestly has
differentiate
messed with me
sometimes.
because I've done stuff that that I would never do like in real life because the social pressures and just
yeah, it's just,
I don't know.
It just happens that way. I mean, like I understand what you mean. I think like another aspect that not really many people acknowledge, not like this is usually a neutral in this field, but something that like I believe is a particularly strong emphasis is that when you watch content creators and when you see people on Twitter speaking their voice about like whatever essentially they want, and they're just like you have a voice, you should speak up about this and stop this and blah 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 and have your own voice and opinion and stuff. I feel like that kind of like enhances like like there is its own pressure to like you have to make a bold statement in order for as if like that matters for other people, when sometimes people can get carried away with it, admittedly. When it's just like, hey, can you like sometimes like I don't really like to make too many like bold statements on my own personal Twitter account or anything anymore, my public account, because it just feels like a waste of time. Like I can like save my breath for something more important. Especially like I feel like it's better to like have serious conversations and calls rather than social media or whatever, because I mean social media people
you're talking to the person directly.
Yeah, you're talking to the person directly.
You hear their inflections, stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's not you
can kind of elaborate more without coming out like an asshole.
Right, yeah. When you're on social media, you have no idea like who's being the jerk, or if you're being the jerk. Sometimes you just don't know. And his second question is, what would you like to see more out of television animation? Well, personally, I think like I've basically summed this up on a previous podcast that we've actually recorded for SnoopCast, but I think like more of just balance would very much benefit like the idea of television animation. And I'll be real with you here. I'm not really actively looking forward to a lot that's on television right now. A lot of my favorite animated things that I'm looking forward to, like either this year, next year, or like whatever year next, it's going to be online. Animaniacs is Hulu. More Hilda is going to be on Netflix. Enter the Florpus and Static Cling for like Rocco and Zim are going to be on Netflix. A lot of these other... Oh, go ahead. Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of these, like animation shows, they're coming over towards Netflix. They have higher budgets. They feel like television shows, and they honestly like a lot of these distributors have like very high quality production teams like making all of these shows and stuff, and all these probably contracts and like whatever business business decisions are being made, but it's good. I feel like, streaming is actually like the beneficial route for animation at this point rather than television, because Cartoon Network is dying and Nickelodeon's dying and like Disney XD is practically just dead and like they're moving everything to Disney Channel. But like now it's like super dead. But how they're moving like all the Disney cartoons over to Disney Channel again. Disney XD is like essentially dead. They're literally airing Let's Play videos on it now. It's a wreck. Yeah, but I mean, like, as far as like television animation, like if you strictly wanted that, I wanted more balance. Like, I think like balance on television was like always like a huge factor for like what I enjoyed growing up, because like there was action shows, there was comedy shows, there was like a mix of both. There could be like like just like anything you really wanted, like animation from different countries and genres and like all this other stuff that like, and decades of like huge, like Cartoon Network, imagine like the hugest library of animation in the world was with Turner's library, like MGM, Hanna-Barbera, Warner Brothers, originals, like and like William Max, like Paramount, Max Fleischer, Popeye, and everything like that. Like it was all under this one big roof. They had color, black and white, action, adventure, comedy. Like they had like all of this stuff, and even from Japan, like with Toonami and everything. Like that's what made Cartoon Network sell. Now they don't have that as much, like nearly as much anymore. They have like 3 regular shows, not literally regular show, but they have 3 regulars that they air constantly on a daily basis. You can't live off that. So streaming, I feel, is it definitely, I mean, like, it's fucking boomer to say, but it's like, it's strong. It's gonna be the future. So there you go.
It wouldn't be so bad if there was like kind of variety of comedy out there on television, right. But like it all feels like
there isn't.
There's like 2 different types of comedy, which is either Teen Titans Go humor or Gravity Falls humor, and like
exactly.
there's no middle ground. There's no variation from that. It's just all almost exactly the same.
And then you have slice of life shows, which are just completely boring. They're not like even like of any substance, like something like Hey Arnold or whatever. Like they're just completely like worthless.
It just feels like they don't say anything interesting about being a kid. They just say, "Hey, remember when you were a kid? I do."
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly.
You remember the small French fries that you would get? Man, that was a wacky time.
Remember Codename Kids Next Door? I used to watch that when I was a kid. I like referencing better shows.
That's all the questions though. We're up.
So you guys want to say anything before we go? Fly into the sun.
Sometimes I have like feelings where like I'm happy to be right in everything about like just stuff that like I predict, but Toy Story 4, I'm really happy to have been proven wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm very, very happy to have been proven wrong. I feel very nice and warm about it. I
remember hearing a bunch of people just like on Twitter just like raising hell about it, saying, "Oh, this movie's gonna suck. It should have ended at 3." But like, wow, like this movie was, I loved it. It was incredible.
I agree, and that's what I got, man. I'm really happy that 4 turned out to be good.
But also, just one more thing. Thank you guys for having me on here. This was really fun.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
Thanks for being on, man.
So, I'm Brucesnoop, and
I'm Ian.
I'm Inkwell. Or don't.
Check him out. No, please, no. Check him out. He does comics, he does drawings, he does cartoons. He's great. He's a great dude. He's been like a friend of mine for like 3 years. Seriously, check out his own work. He's a talented guy, talented artist, and a very fun person to talk to about like a variety of certain things. Check me out if you want to. Also, I draw once in a millennia, but I love engaging in people's conversations all the time.
He was a very fun. He's a very interesting guy to talk to.
Yeah. Check out Bruce for his other ramblings on whatever else is going on in the world. Perhaps
I don't even make videos anymore.
He doesn't make videos. I mean, like what else you got, man? You gotta promote. But
yeah, I mean, I gotta promote my Twitter. Like my rambling is about like people like Sargon.
Anyways, thanks everyone for checking out this episode of the SnoopCast.
If you want to check out for more updates, go on our Twitter, twitter.com/SnoopCastPodC. Support us on Patreon. And just listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. We really like the support. Anyways, thanks for listening to this new episode of the SnoopCast.